good thing, good thing, good thing, good thing.
Well, what is the agreement? I mean, how come that's not spelled out here? This is development agreement, right here, review and recommend for approval, okay? Well, what are they going for to approve?
See all the speakers. Yeah, definitely.
Four.
So we won't have any other, we can use the expedited process, the quick one.
See, that's what I thought. This one ain't, she says that's included in it. Well, it ain't. They only own, like I said, where's my map at? This other side. Show them, okay. Which is this, right? Oh, that includes this. What is it? She's right. It shows. Okay, so it's all this right. And then this is they're already planning a subdivision. They're already planning on doing the same shit all over.
All right. You ready? You ready? It's 8:32.
All right, good morning, everybody. Make sure I'm on the right page here. This meeting of the Escambia County Planning Board for July 2nd, 2024 is hereby called to order with 5 members present. We do have a quorum, and we have 4 voting members out of the 7, so that does establish a quorum for today's meeting. Just a reminder to turn off your electronic devices or put them on silent. And if you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir.
Did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, sir.
I'll now entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal advertisement. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The rezoning meeting minutes from the previous meeting dated May 7th, 2024 have been provided to the board members. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
We got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All right. Motion carries. The rezoning hearing package for July 2nd, 2024 with findings of fact has been provided to the board members. I'll entertain a motion to accept the rezoning hearing package with findings of fact and legal advertisement into evidence. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. The rezoning hearing package with findings of fact and legal advertisement will be marked and included in the record for all of today's cases. Will the court reporter please swear in members of staff?
Staff, raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear or affirm testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, and the truth, nothing but the truth.
All right. We have previously qualified staff to offer expert testimony in the area of land use and planning. Does anyone have any questions regarding their qualifications and ability to offer expert testimony? We're good? Okay. All right. At this hearing, the planning board is acting under its authority to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners, the BCC, on rezoning applications. These hearings are quasi-judicial in nature. These hearings are like evidentiary hearings in a court of law, however, less formal. All testimony will be given under oath, and anyone testifying before the planning board may be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits that the planning board considers will be entered into evidence and made part of the record. Opinion testimony will be limited to experts, and closing arguments will be limited to the evidence in the record. Before making a decision, the planning board will consider all relevant testimony, the exhibits entered into evidence, and the applicable law. Each individual who wishes to address the planning board must complete a speaker request form to submit to the planning board clerk, one of these pink forms. These forms are on the table in the back of the room. You will not be allowed to speak until we receive a completed form, so please note that only individuals who are present and give testimony on the record at this hearing today before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. No new evidence can be presented at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Therefore, all testimony and evidence must be presented here today. The planning board will provide a recommendation for each rezoning request to the BCC, which will review testimony, documents, and exhibits, consider the closing arguments, and make a final decision. All decisions by the BCC are final, and anyone who wishes to seek judicial review of the decision of the BCC must do so in a court of competent jurisdiction within 30 days of the date the Board of County Commissioners approves or rejects the recommended order of the planning board. All written or oral communications outside of this hearing with members of the planning board regarding matters under consideration today are considered ex parte communication. Ex parte communications are presumed prejudicial under Florida law and must be disclosed as provided in BCC Resolution Number 96-13. As each case is heard, I will ask that any board member who has been involved in any ex parte communication to please identify themselves and describe the communication. As required by Section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code, the Planning Board's recommendation to the BCC shall include consideration of the following 6 approval conditions. The applicant has the burden of presenting competent, substantial evidence to the reviewing board establishing that the requested zoning district would contribute to or result in a logical and orderly development pattern. The appropriate surrounding area within the uses and conditions must be considered, may vary with those uses and conditions, and is not necessarily the same area required for mail notification. A logical and orderly pattern shall require demonstration of each of the following 6 conditions. Condition A, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning is consistent with the future land use FLU category as prescribed in LDC Chapter 3 and with all other goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. If the rezoning is required to properly enact a proposed FLU amendment, transmitted for state agency review, the proposed zoning is consistent with the proposed FLU and conditional to its adoption. Condition B, consistent with zoning and district provisions. The proposed zoning is consistent with the purpose and intent and with any other zoning establishment provisions prescribed by the proposed district in Chapter 3. Condition C, compatible with surroundings. all of the permitted uses of the proposed zoning, not just those anticipated by the rezoning applicant, are compatible, as defined in Chapter 6, with the surrounding uses. The uses of any surrounding undeveloped land shall be considered the permitted uses of the district. Compatibility is not considered with potential conditional uses or with any non-conforming or unapproved uses. Also, in establishing the compatibility of a residential use, there is no additional burden to demonstrate the compatibility of specific residents or activities proposed by fair housing laws. Condition D, appropriate as spot zoning, where the proposed zoning would establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning as defined in Chapter 6. The isolated district would nevertheless be transitional in character between the adjoining districts, or the differences with those districts would be minor or sufficiently limited. The extent of these mitigating characteristics or conditions demonstrates an appropriate site-specific balancing of interest between the isolated district and the adjoining lands. Condition E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions. If the land uses or development conditions within the area surrounding the property of rezoning have changed, the changes are to such a degree and character that it is in the public interest to allow new uses, density, or intensity in the area through rezoning, and the permitted uses of the proposed district are appropriate and not premature for the area or likely to create or contribute to sprawl. At the beginning of each case, as long as there's no objections from the applicant, we will allow staff to briefly present the location and zoning maps and photos of the property. Next, we'll hear from the applicant and any witnesses they may have. Then we'll hear from the staff and witnesses they may have. And finally, we'll hear from members of the public who have filled out one of the pink speaker request forms. There are 3 cases to be heard today. And the first rezoning application for consideration is number Z-2024-07, which requests zoning of the 2000 North Highway 95A block from industrial district dwelling unit density limited to vested residential development to HCLI, heavy commercial and light industrial, 25 dwelling units per acre, as requested by John Prinz, agent for Escambia County Investments Partners, LLC. Members of the board, have there been any ex parte communication between you, the applicant, of the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Please also disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
No to all.
I work with the end user, Circle K stores, as their landlord on other properties, but not with this case.
Okay, no to all.
No to all.
All right. Staff, was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
Was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then, is the applicant okay with staff presenting the photographs before we get started?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Staff, you can go ahead and present the maps and photographs for case Z 2024-07.
Good morning, Allison Lindsay, Urban Planner Development Services. So this is the location map showing the location at the corner of Quintet and Highway 4. This is the zoning map. The current zoning is industrial. The surrounding zoning is industrial, and then on the other side is heavy commercial, light industrial, and then the yellow is low-density residential. And for some reason, the labels just didn't print out on the map. So this is the future land use, also showing the future land use currently.
But we will, with the permission, that's a scrivener error, we will be adding the labels to the maps going forward to make sure they get for the record going forward. Okay?
So the future land use currently is industrial, that's the purple, and then the future land use other surrounding is mixed-use suburban. This is existing land use of the property in the surrounding. This is the flood zone. It's in an X flood zone. And this is an aerial photo of the subject property. And this is the public hearing sign that was posted on Quintet Road.
This is looking onto the subject property. And this is looking east along Quintet. This is looking south across Quintet Road from the subject property. And this is looking west toward 95A. This is the public hearing sign that was posted on Highway 95A. This is looking north from 95A. And this is looking west from the subject property at, on the Highway 95A side. And this is looking onto the subject property from 95A. And this is looking south from the Highway 95A, and this, that's the side of the property. And that's all the maps and photography.
All right, thank you so much. All right, at this time, we'll have the applicant come forward and please be sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, and then if you please just state your name and address for the record.
It's D.V. Satyanathan, 1055 Kathleen Road, Lakeland, Florida, 33805.
All right, thank you very much. And then did you receive a copy of the rezoning hearing package with the findings of fact for today?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code.
That's correct.
Okay. You can go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, so we have gone through the staff's determination for the rezoning, and I just want to bring this up. This parcel was originally, a few years ago, was zone HCIL, and for some reason it was rezoned to L, and now we're asking for it to be going back to HCIL. And we concur with the staff's findings on every single criteria that you had outlined here. Additionally, the Quintet Road and State Road 95A requires an alignment for safety reasons, and the county has taken that project up, and Circle K Stores is willing to pay the pro rata share of that road improvement as part of this project. But other than that, going through the staff's findings, we have no objection to this, and we respectfully request that this application go through.
All right. Thank you very much. Board, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? All right. If we need you, we'll call you back up here. All right. Thank you. Staff, if you'd like to go through your presentation at this time.
Yes, sir. Okay, Z 2024-07, this is 2000 North Highway 95A. Future land use is industrial, and they are requesting to go from industrial zoning to HCLI. So for the criteria A, consistency with the comprehensive plan. The proposed amendment to HCLI is consistent with the future land use of industrial. If approved, the rezoning would allow for a mix of retail sales and services, but exclude residential development. Consistency with the land development code. As was mentioned, this property was previously rezoned in 2021 from HCLI to industrial. And that currently the HCLI request is consistent and does meet the purposes of the land development code. The current parcel is industrial, and it does provide for a range of industrial uses that are appropriate for warehousing, salvage, manufacturing, and other types, while minimizing the dangers and populations to the population and the environment from heavy industrial activities. The primary intent will allow retail sales and services not currently allowed in the industrial zoning district. And the property meets the locational criteria as the property is on the corner of Highway 95A and Quintet Road. Both are a major collector roadway. Criteria C, compatible with the surrounding uses. Within the 500-foot radius, there is identified properties that are zoned industrial, HCLI, and low-density residential. The proposed rezoning or downzoning, because it was industrial and they're now less intense, it will be compatible with the surrounding uses. Criteria D, appropriate spot zoning. There are no contiguous parcels on the east side of Highway 95A that are zoned HCLI, although it was determined that the proposed HCLI zoning would not establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning because there are parcels to the south that are zoned HCLI. Criteria E, appropriate change conditions. The land uses or development conditions within the area surrounding the properties have not changed, and the permitted uses in the HCLI would be appropriate for the area while still leaving areas for industrial use. Now, I do want to mention that when this was rezoned in 2021, there was an additional piece of property to its north, but that was not included in this one. That's all of staff's findings.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board for staff at this time? We do have one speaker.
Could I see the current zoning map?
So the purple is the industrial, and the HCLI is in the pink, if you will.
Thank you.
All right. For those members of the public who wish to speak on this matter, please note that the planning board bases our decision on the approval conditions and exceptions described in Section 2-7.2 of the Escambia County Land Development Code. During our deliberations, the planning board will not consider general statements of support or opposition. Accordingly, please limit your testimony to the approval conditions and exceptions described in Section 2-7.2. Please also note that the only individuals who are present and giving testimony on the record at this hearing before the planning board will be allowed to speak at the hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. So as I call your name, if you'll just please come up, state your full name and address for the record, and be sworn in. I've got one form here, but I think there might be two names on here. I've got Catherine Griffin, and then was this David Bell was also going to speak as well? Okay, Mr. Bell will get you up after Ms. Griffin and give you all your time to speak. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Griffin. I live at 116 West Quintet Road. I'm against the
And we'll have you get sworn in just real quick. I'm sorry.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Try to keep your voice up if you can.
Okay.
Speak into the mic.
And you can lift it up too. It just kind of moves pretty. There you go.
Yes, my name is Catherine Griffin. I live at 116 West Quintet Road, Cantonment, Florida 32533. I'm against the planning zone because, for one thing, my mom lived at 2485 Safety Road, and the road from 2485 go across the road to get to the concrete place on north or 95A. And the county done took her property and don't want her to be compensated for her property. And we are against that because we want my mom to be compensated for her property going up 95A, because we were planning on getting it closed down because it's on her property, 95A. And they don't want to compensate her or anything about her property. All these elderly people that live out there, they don't want to compensate. They taking their land and don't want to be compensated to the elderly people. And I also know that we can have that place 95A closed down because the Davis was living out there all their life. And when they started building out there on Quintet Road, going up to Highway 29, they said that the people out there that building those houses, that the lady, Miss Davis, I had to move, and also they said about me, they were living there so long to get to her house that they couldn't close that place down. But I come to see that they did have me Davis. She had to reroute somewhere else. That lady been living there for so long years. Like how I know, 'cause I worked on that plantation. There used to be a plantation out there on 95, out there on 29. 'Cause I worked at 6 years old out there, and I know what's going on out there. So they need to compensate these elderly people about their land, and I'm against it.
Okay, is there any questions for the speaker?
Ma'am, which property are you speaking about on the map?
Well, I'm not good at the map.
Can you move the mouse?
Well, the industrial places out there on 95A is a concrete place out there, and you have to pass through on 95A to get to that concrete.
If they're moving the mouse on there, can you tell them when they're, which property?
2485, my mom's property. I don't know too much about mail. Hmm? Well, I know my mom is on 95A. I know going down Quintet Road, going north. Okay. My mom is West Quintet, right there on Stacy Road. Stacy Road add up on to 95A. My mom lived on Stacy, and it got to cross.
Okay, I think we have it, thank you.
All right. Any more questions for the speaker at this time? Okay. All right. Yep.
So I'm following along, but where your property is in relation to where this property is, the topic of compensation for 95A, that doesn't have anything to do with this owner, does it?
Yes, it does, because the industrial places are all out there on Quintet Road. My mom lived on Quintet Road, on 95, off of 95A. To get up to, I said, go to Molina from 95A, okay, Quintet Road. You got to get on, to make the left, to get on 95A. My mom's trailer is on on Stacy Road, okay, to go on the highway. Her land is on the highway. I can, matter of fact, next time I come to the board meeting, I'm gonna bring that map, because I scoped it out down there at the land place.
Can I, to help clarify, not to negate what she is saying, but she has, you're right, Mr. Powell, this does not have anything to do with that piece per se, but she has came to the board about other discussions not related to this at all. So I just want to provide that information. So she has been to the board about other issues not pertaining to this. So, you know, with rezoning, we gotta, with your job is to stay with what is at hand. And
So
then
for the-
other matters deal with those, if
Yes.
they are.
So for the record, they certainly may have a legitimate issue, but it's not with the owner of this property.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And she's shaking her head, sorry.
I got you. And Mr. Bell, did you want to speak as well? No? Okay. All right. Thank y'all.
They just received the card, so when they.
I got you. That makes sense. All right. So are there any questions for the applicant or staff from the board at this time? And if there's not, then I'll entertain a motion for this rezoning hearing.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that Z 2024-07 be approved as recommended by staff.
All right. Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right. Motion carries and rezoning has been approved. At this time, because the next rezoning case is going to require a future land use amendment, we are going to adjourn the rezoning meeting, and we're going to go into the regular planning board meeting. And then we'll knock these out, and we'll come back to our rezoning meeting. All right. The meeting of the Escambia County Planning Board for July 2nd, 2024 is hereby called to order. With 5 members, we do have a quorum. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, sir.
Did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, sir.
I'll now entertain a motion to waive the reading of the legal advertisement.
Motion to waive the reading.
Got a motion, we've got a second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The planning board meeting minutes for May 7th, 2024 have previously been provided to the board members. I'll entertain a motion to accept the planning board meeting minutes into evidence.
So moved.
Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. The planning board hearing package for July 2nd, 2024 has been provided to the board members. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the planning board hearing package and the legal advertisement into evidence. Do we have a motion? All right, got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Our first public hearing for today is a public hearing concerning the review of a development agreement for Bear No Estates. The board review and recommend to the Board of County Commissioners for approval a development agreement between S&S Acquisitions LLC and Escambia County for Bear No Estates subdivision to vest certain conditions agreed to by both parties in accordance with procedures and requirements for Florida statute. All right. At this time, staff, are y'all going to make a presentation, or would we rather have the applicant come up first? Sorry?
Yeah, the applicant.
Applicant, okay.
Yeah.
Great. I've got Rodney Sutton, Bill Mitchum as the agents for this case. Morning, gentlemen.
The development agreement that is proposed contemplates the development of 3 parcels, a 230-acre parcel, a 49-acre parcel, and a 26-acre parcel. The development agreement assumes and would be entered into contemporaneously with a flue change on the 49-acre parcel from agricultural to rural community, a rezoning of the 49-acre parcel from agricultural to rural residential, and a rezoning of the 230-acre parcel from rural residential to rural mixed use. The primary effect of the development agreement is to do 2 things. 1, it limits the use of the property to residential development. And number 2, it caps the total dwellings over all of those parcels at 305 units, which is 305 acres, 305 units. So that's the primary purpose of the development agreement. Anything to add?
All right. Do we have any questions from the board?
I would ask, how long have you been working with staff on this?
Since January. Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Thank
If
you.
we got any questions, we'll call you back up here.
Thank you.
All right. Staff, do y'all have anything to run through for this?
And I want to say, because development agreements, they are a legal creation, governed by Florida statutes with many legal documents and legal terms that has to be put in there. I'm not a lawyer, so they definitely were engaged heavily with with the county attorney's office, with Mr. Chris, working out the legalities of this legal creation that can be used as a tool in the Florida statute. So it's just not staff. That's not my area. But the legality of the development agreement is really governed by the legal department and their attorneys.
All right, thank you. We do have 2 speakers on this item today. So I'll have you come up and just state your name and address for the record. You do not have to be sworn in for this. So we'll start with Sharon Colburn.
Hi,
I'm Sharon Colburn. I currently live at 1100 Ridge Way, which is in the Knollwood community. It butts up to the new Cedar, whatever it's called, Cedar Woods 440 housing development. I also have property at 310 North Chipper Road with my husband. We have 20 acres that butts up to this. So I'm very concerned about the impact that this will have of the properties in that area. We've had that property in the family since I think 1975 is when they moved here. Always raised cattle on it. I'm not sure at this point exactly what I'm supposed to say for this, but right now, where I live currently, they've wiped out all the trees. There's no trees. I'm going to be looking at my backyard in Knollwood at 4 houses. So when I think about this property, 305 units, at least 610 vehicles, along the property that all of us have out there who moved out there to live in the country. There's a sector plan in place. I've watched it systematically destroyed all around where I live currently. I'm concerned about getting to work in the morning. I'm concerned about getting home from work. The traffic is ridiculous. How are our schools going to, Tate's already at capacity. Where are these kids going to go to high school? Quintet Road and Highway 95A. It's a death trap. I can't even go that way. When I drive to this property, 310 North Chipper Road, I have to go to 196 so that it's safe. But guess what? I can't go back 196 because 196 and 29 to turn, that's another death trap. We don't have the infrastructure to handle the traffic of all of these neighborhoods that are being built. You have Pine Top. You have the Neal Road development that's in my backyard now. You have that development right there at Quintet Road and 95. I'm not even sure what happened to the Matheson one with the 2000 or whatever. I don't even know what happened to that. But until we can handle the amount of people that you're approving for homes to come out there, I don't even see how this can be looked at. This is a farming community. The Barronos, they owned all that property. They farmed that property. Where are we going to have cows? Where are we going to have fields? Where is it going to be country? Anyway, at this point, that's kind of just this what I want to say. I think about right now. I look out at deer in the backyard, and like I said, I'm be looking out at 4 houses. Where are the animals going to go? What about water? After Hurricane Ivan, I only lost 70 trees. We lost 70 trees.
And Ms. Colburn, have you wrap up here if you can, a couple seconds.
But I think about water. I think about all the water going through the property, removing the trees, because they have removed every single tree so far at the development at Cedar Tree, at every single tree where they're building houses.
Thank
And
you.
I'll just wrap up for now.
All right, next we've got Sheila O'Donovan.
Yes.
So, if you'll come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we'll get your time started.
Okay. My name is Sheila O'Donovan. My address is 550 North Chipper Road, Cantonment, Florida 32533. I'm here today to protest against the rezoning request for KC 202409 and 20248, which the 2409, which just last year was granted from agricultural to rural residential, and now they're requesting it from rural residential to rural mixed to increase their amount of houses that's going to be put out there. And which is, now they're changing, the other pieces they're trying to change from agricultural to rural residential, which I'm sure long down the line they're going to change that to switch it to the rural mixed. I, as well as many other members of our community which are affected by these requests, are genuinely concerned about all the surrounding subdivisions that have recently in our process being built that have and will affect our future ownership and property usage. I would like to know if there's been a recent master plan review made My family moved to this community in the late 1960s, and which we, back then, were, was designed for agriculture district. That's why we moved out there. I have seen changes and effects that have been happening and are happening. All these new subdivisions popping up all around us are damaging our peaceful farming and rural community, therefore turning us into a concrete city. If this zoning is granted, and it will have a tremendous environmental impact on the natural spring headwaters that will affect my spring-fed lake, along with other spring-fed creeks and lakes and ponds, as well as the wildlife and vegetation. It will also have a significant impact on the population density, drainage, and traffic that we are already having to deal with. So therefore, I am, and the others are requesting that you refuse the rezoning request. Also, I need to point out that on this case for the 20249 has an issue of a landlocking a portion of my family's property which needs to be tended to, and are requesting the information on how to resolve this matter, especially if this rezoning is approved. And like I said, like she has mentioned, all this traffic and everything like that, and the waters that are being damaged by this. I don't, like I said, I'm not in agreement with it, along with other people. And another thing I'd like to know is why you don't have these meetings in the afternoons when everybody's off work instead of first thing in the morning, where there can be a lot more people to be just, to rebel against this. And not only that, we only received the motion to get these things in the mail on 11 days before this meeting took place. Okay, so I think it's unfair how y'all are going about getting this in with all these subdivisions popping up, and that's the reason why. Because like a lot of people don't, think that this is not going to happen, but it is happening.
All right. Thank you very much. Joshua Roberson, if you'll please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I can use my phone up here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, good morning, board. How you doing? My name's Joshua Robertson. Can you hear me? I live at 6747 Highway 99 in Molino. The two ladies that come up here expressed great concern. I'm just looking at here at Chapter 2 Development and Compliance Review. Dropping down, back out of here real quick because I took a screenshot. Let's see. Dropping down number 5. Just going to reference it. Board action. You want me to read it aloud, or you can just see it because it's yours, right? So, and these two ladies reference it. Quality of life, right? In these neighborhoods popping up, concurrences. You're going to put all these houses, dropping it down to, I think one section of this that they're reviewing for the Barano Estates is low density, because you're going to put, what is that? I think I was looking at it, 10 houses on 4 acres, and then the rest of them will be crammed in, and then you have I can't remember the exact acreage for the retention pond, but then you put in streets and you put in the sidewalks, and you're gonna cram those houses in. So we're looking at probably a house per third of an acre, maybe something of that nature. So 2 cars per house. And okay, we can look at it and you can say the precedent has been set because you put in the neighborhood right there. So now the precedent has been set. We're going to keep developing. And I agree with these ladies. We moved out there for a reason, because it's not Pensacola. Hey, I'm all for smart, manageable growth. It's got to grow. We got to go somewhere. I understand that. But what's the smart, manageable growth factor? It's not before you put in the services. We're going to turn it into Beulah. What's happened there? We're going to turn it down in Navarre. Think about what we're doing, gentlemen. That's all I'm asking. We're going to overload everything up there. They've already addressed that. I'm not going to keep going over that. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Are there any comments or questions from the board members for staff or the applicant?
Staff, do you have any response to any of the input?
Caleb McCarty, AICP, Escambia County. I just want to note that obviously that the future land use changes and everything else is relying upon this development agreement. I can't speak for the proposed developer, but the development agreement essentially significantly caps the residential units that could go on the property. If these other items were to proceed in our next hearing, you know, the potential for the large piece alone is at 460 units. This development agreement essentially caps this whole area plus the other two parcels at 305. So the developer recognizes the need for infrastructure and things that would otherwise, but this is at a node of the county between these two roads that otherwise would support significant amount of residential density beyond this development agreement.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
No, I just would comment for those folks that think, you know, we sit up here and impervious to this. We do this every month, and it's the consistent rub of people wanting to live where you live and the people that live there that don't want people, or not don't want people, but don't want that particular type of development, are very passionate about it and should be. And it's always the chicken and the egg. Do we have the people move out there and then bring the infrastructure, or do we have the infrastructure and then have the people come out there? Because who's going to put the infrastructure out there for nothing? And we go back to concurrency, another lovely topic that we'll one day certainly be addressing again. But it's a challenge. My mother-in-law lives in Cottage Hill. We're up there frequently, know the area, and Beulah, Perdido, nobody's impervious to the fact that people have figured out that we live here, and they like it. But
All right. All right, at this time, there's no further discussion. I will accept a motion for this item we have here before us on the development agreement for Barron Estates.
Motion for approval?
Okay, we got a motion to approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'll just say, I mean, they're capping it, so that's why I feel a little bit warm and fuzzy at it. I mean, it's better than the alternative here. So, I mean, there is questions I will ask that, you know, as always, Development Services work with the adjacent property owners. I mean, there is a question that she brings up about landlocked property that I'd refer to Horace's team, so I will say that.
Some of those things, some of the things there, they will be addressed if the board decide at the next couple of hearings, that is what we'll be going through as well.
All right.
So Caleb, to be clear, currently they could put over 400 units on the one parcel, and this agreement's going to limit the three parcels to 305 units.
Right. Obviously, the development agreement is tied in with the proposed rezoning and those type of things coming before the board today. If those things were to proceed and it was a straight-up allowed rezoning, the density alone of the larger piece would be 460 units of the proposed. So this plus another 50 units results in the proposed development agreement being capped at 305. That's important.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries for the development agreement. Next, we will go into a public hearing concerning the review of an ordinance amending the future land use map, SSA-2024-03. And this is prior to the hearing of the rezoning case, which we'll go to next. And so the future land use that the board review and recommend to the Board of County Commissioners an ordinance amending Chapter 7, the future land use element policy FLU 1.1.1 to provide for an amendment to the 2030 FLU map, SSA 2024-3, changing the FLU category, a parcel located within Section 24, Township 2N, Range 31 West, parcel number 24-2N-31, 2100-000-000, totaling 49.99 plus or minus acres, located on Rocky Branch Road from Ag to Rural Community, RC. At this time, we've got the agents. Again, Bill and Rodney, if you'd like to come forward and make any comments or presentation?
Yeah, consistent with the development agreement, we're asking for a conversion from agricultural flu to rural community. This conversion, I think, is consistent with the comprehensive plan. All of the map amendments requirements are satisfied. We've reviewed the staff findings, and we concur with all of them.
All right. Are there any questions for the agents?
This is the 49.99 acre parcel,
That is correct.
and I think the requirement is it has to be 50 acres or less.
Correct.
That's correct.
It's 49.99 plus or minus.
Correct.
What's the big?
It's on, yeah, the legal
Our-
description and the survey refer to it as 49.9, yes.
Okay.
And the state law says 50 acres or more becomes a large scale that have to go to Tallahassee. So this is a small scale that's governed by the BCC according to the state law in which it can be.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're meeting that requirement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. If there's no further questions, I'll have you guys sit down for now. Staff, do you have a presentation to make at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. So to reiterate what you said is, this is the 49.9 acre parcel. This is off of Rocky Branch Road, between 95 and the railroad there. This is our location, and then we have our 500-foot radius zoning map. Current zoning is agriculture. And the existing future land use is agriculture. The proposed future land use wishes to go to rural community. And this is an aerial of the location. This is our public hearing side. It's placed on 95A. This is looking north along 95A. This is looking northeast towards the site. And this is looking east towards the site. And this is looking southeast towards the site as well. And south along 95A. And across this is looking at 196, otherwise Barano Park Road. And that concludes our photos and maps. If you like, we can proceed with our findings.
Yes.
All right, excellent. So again, to summarize, this is a small-scale map amendment to the future land use map of Escambia County. A proposed change to the flu category of a vacant parcel totaling 49 acres from agriculture to rural community. The zoning designation of the subject parcel is agriculture. The applicant has also submitted a rezoning request, Z 2024-08, to rezone the parcel from agriculture to rural residential. A future land use change to rural community will allow for a density of 2 dwelling units per 1 acre. Concerning our comprehensive plan, Land Development Code flu map amendment requirements, the need and benefit, our analysis showed that a conversion from agriculture future land use to rural community future land use will allow for a higher density of 2 dwelling units per 1 acre, which would be compatible with the properties in the surrounding area while supporting the new development and serving the rural and agriculture areas of the county. Number 2, professional practices. Analysis shows that the proposed change to rural community will be compatible with the existing rural community future land use that abuts the subject property along North Highway 95A and property to the west. The change would support a more compact development pattern as intended by the rural community future land use. Concerning B, future land use map amendments conditions, our analysis show that the proposed amendment complies with all 3 conditions established by Florida statutes for the adoption of any small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. A, the subject property totaling 49.99 acres is use of 50 acres or fewer. B, the proposed amendment does not involve a text change to the comprehensive plan, but only proposes a land use change to the future land use map for site-specific, small-scale development activity. C, the property that is subject to the proposed amendment is not within a designated area of critical state concern. The proposed amendment meets those criteria established by Florida statute for a small scale. Other applicable comprehensive plan objectives concerning housing, our analysis show that the applicant has a request to rezone the parcel from agriculture to rural residential. The proposed rural community future land use is compatible with the current zoning and proposed zoning if approved. If the zoning and the future land use change are approved, the density of the land would change to 2 dwelling units per acre and would continue to support new development that serves rural and agriculture areas of the county. If approved, the future land use change will be consistent with the zoning and would allow for more compact residential development. Concerning our future land use, our analysis show that the future land use categories adjacent to and surrounding the subject parcel are rural community and agriculture. The change to rural community will not change the area's characteristics by allowing a higher density in the neighborhood. Infrastructure analysis showed that the applicant states that the property is not served by sanitary sewer in that area and septic tanks are proposed for the development. The applicant is aware of the requirements for coordination with the Florida Health Department to accommodate the permitting and installation of septic tanks. Furthermore, the applicant states that potable water is served by Molino Utilities and the establishment of water needs to be coordinated with the applicable providers. Concerning our concurrency management system goals related to potable water, sanitary sewer, levels of service and required new service connection, and solid waste disposal. We found our Molino Utilities provides the potable water and ECUA provides solid waste collection and disposal for the subject property. Concerning stormwater management and transportation and mobility, we provided from traffic and transportation staff. They have reviewed the future land use case, SSA 2024-03, agenda item for this planning board meeting and provided the comments as follows. Traffic and transportation operations has no objections to the land use change. The planned subdivision will be required to meet the land development code standards, including roadway widths and connecting intersection improvements to Highway 95A if required. Note that TTO, Traffic and Transportation Operations Review, is solely based on the application submittal packet, so the comments above hold no bearing on any comments made during the development review process. Concerning number 4, protected resources, our analysis show that the subject parcels are outside any existing wellhead protection area based on Escambia County GIS. B, concerning historically significant sites, analysis show that the applicant provided a letter from the State of Florida Division of Historic Resources indicating no presence or absence of historically significant sites as this parcel is vacant. Prior to any future development order, a historic analysis must be complete. Concerning wetlands and habitat and urban forests, our analysis showed that there's no indication from the available National Wetland Inventory map of any wetlands. If any protected trees are located for future new development, they will be analyzed for compliance with all applicable environmental regulations prior to the issuance of a development plan approval. That concludes staff's findings for the small-scale map amendment.
Thank you. Board, are there any questions for staff?
I just had a question about when the wellhead, how do you determine the wellhead, just existing GIS maps or?
Correct. Yeah, there's available GIS data. It's on the county website. We utilize it as staff when someone proposes development. We look at that in coordination with the well owner, be it ECUA or whoever else. There are wellhead protection measures. If you get too close, there's some prohibitions such as gasoline, right, underground storage and those type of things. We didn't find that here. And needless to say, residential development may not have that much of an impact, but that's not the case for this. We didn't see any wellhead information for this area.
Gotcha. And I'd ask Rachel, what is the timing requirement when we put up signage?
15 days
15
before the
days.
meeting, so
Yeah.
June 17th.
Yeah,
would-
and I know we've talked about this before. It is a pain in the backside for people to participate in this as well as for the people up here, because most of us have jobs. But I'm just curious, because I know we have Board of County Commissioner meetings in the evening, and we've gone down this road before several times, and I don't know, I can't, quite frankly, it's been so many times, but I don't remember why we've kept it at it, other than the fact that we have the room. Yeah.
We had that request again this year. The outcome is still the same. And that's, like I say, you and I have been doing this a long time. We've had that, but the outcome is still the same. Yes, sir.
Two things to dovetail on what Horace said. If we get more participation, wouldn't that be a positive if we change the meeting times?
Of course, that's always a potential outcome. But as you know, you've been doing this a long time. You know, many times we've had rezoning cases further north in, I'm not going to say one in particular, this room was packed. So therefore, it's up respectfully it's up to the citizens if they want to be engaged. Respectfully, I'm saying this out of respect for them, because we do like a customer and citizens environment. Somehow or another, ways can be made, because we had this room full for probably way up there. I mean, packed to the rim on every occasion. I'm not going to say a particular case. So we've had that as well. So.
Thank you. The second item I had was if we could go to page 26, under number 2, future land use. The analysis there, it says the change to rural community would not change the area's characteristics by allowing a higher density in the neighborhood. We're going from one unit per acre to 2. I would argue that it would change the characteristics, or it could change the characteristics. If you could explain the analysis in a little bit more depth.
Sure. Obviously, we consider this in conjunction with what the applicant is bringing for us. The potential for the future land use is the 2 dwelling units per acre. And it does have the potential there to allow that, and that must be considered. In conjunction with this, the rezoning request, and the applicant may be able to address this better, is for the rural residential zoning district. So yes, the future land use could allow for 2 dwelling units per acre and would allow for 2 dwelling units per acre. There is a centrality to this area along 94.5A that shows a community that's smaller in lot size. If you pull up the map, the aerial. And that area does allow for, more dense type of areas. It may not be able to grab it on this map, but in association with the other area along 95A. So the primary access would be through the development review process. It's going to be associated with the larger piece.
And I think can we respond?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'd also say that if you looked at the future land use map, it's a contiguous expansion of the rural community. So when it said surrounding properties, you've got rural community going all the way there, which I think is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that's the way that we looked at that response.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board at this time? Okay, this time we'll move into public speakers. And we've got Ms. Colburn, if you'll please come up and state your name and address again for the record, and we'll get your time started.
Sharon Colburn, I live at 1100 Ridgeway, Cantonment, Florida, and then also have a property at 310 North Chipper Road. I have a question though, because on this paper that I have, it says that they're changing it for 1 dwelling per 20 acres to 1 dwelling per 4 acres. What are we talking about here with the 2 per acre?
So yeah, the hearing that we have before us now, we have the future land use that's required by all counties in Florida. They are seeking a change to that map. The rezoning that you probably see there is the next case that would be heard, and that is the actual density that will be applied to this parcel. So although that the rural community future land use does allow for the 2 dwelling units per acre, those things are considered by the zoning district that will otherwise be assigned as well.
Well,
You're-
well, first of all, I want to address the participation, because just because somebody isn't here, they shouldn't be discounted. There needs to be a way that you can state your opinion without being present. I mean, people have jobs. We live in a world where you can't just take off. I teach school. The only reason I can be here is because it's July. I have had my thoughts come with Jamie Rogers. I'm sure you know who she is. But we just can't all be here, and we have to send somebody in our place. We just need to have a way to communicate with you that we don't like it. If you look at comments on northofescambia.com or things like that, if you give us a way to say it without being here, I think making it, to say that we're not present means we don't care is ridiculous. I think that is just ridiculous, because there are a whole bunch of people that care. Also, you're talking about a rural area, which means there's not as many people. Okay, there's not as many people. And if people start to say, you know what, all the people at Kingsfield, if they said, you know what, when they approve this, this means my kids don't get to go to Tate anymore. They're going to have to go to maybe, Pine Forest is full. Maybe they're going to have to go to Washington or Escambia or something. Or maybe if they're north of maybe they're going to have to go to, I can't even, I'm so mad right now. But anyway, I mean, people are affected and they don't even know that they're affected. Exactly. I mean, I had no idea about the hearing for the gas station or whatever there, because I don't live in that little area right there. I mean, people don't even know that they're affected. I just, it's just not okay. And I have, just in the second that I've been here, I have realized that nobody really cares. It's about money, it's about development.
Colburn,
I don't have a lawyer, it's
Well, we
very
do care, but here's the thing,
frustrating.
there is a services, with development services, that is literally the front facing of this. And they're there from 8 to 5 every day to answer and help,
Right,
facilitate this.
but as a citizen of Escambia County, I am up here putting my trust in the people who have been assigned to do this, to do what's best for the county. And what's best for the county is to make sure that we can handle what you're approving, and that it's not going to negatively affect everything. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, they say they're only going to put 305. Is that legally binding? I mean, if you approve this 2 per acre, I mean, they say, and this says 1 per, does that mean that they can change it and do 2 per acre? I mean, there are so many. I've sent Jamie on my behalf so many times with properties. If I were here every time something affected me, I would never get to be able to go to work. And you're going to have meetings on this that I'm not going to be able to attend on this same thing. I would spend my life up here in front of you.
If I may, for clarification and for education, and this is not, I like to be clear, because if I don't take my time and speak, I start stuttering. So that's why I want to be clear, not to try to demean no one. So please don't take that. Many times, many venues that people do receive information from is not the right avenue to go to. My staff, my department, my development service department, we would gladly meet with anyone to explain the process. Also, too, we want to be clear. Now, this is the legislative process on this particular small-scale map amendment, not the quasi-judicial, what will come next during the rezoning. In the legislative process, people that did not show up here to speak on this particular item, they can show up and speak at the Board of County Commissioners under the legislative process, because people don't always come to the right source. They don't always get that information. If people can call us, if I'm wrong, my attorney can, and I've been doing this a long time, under the legislative process, which this is a small-scale map amendment. The next process, which is the rezoning, that's the quasi-judicial process. Those are set by case laws, state laws, and you have to be here. But on this process, if someone say, hey, this case, I want to show up and speak to the Board of County Commissioners that were not here today, on this case, on the legislative and the development agreement, they definitely can show up and speak and address their concerns at the next level, which will be before the Board of County Commissioners. It's very, very, sometimes what people, and we want to educate, but please, we are the ones that have the education. Come to, and we'll be glad to sit down and explain. Just because someone may tell you something, that don't mean to make it factual or the facts of the case. So we are the item. But again, this process, people that did not speak, they can show up at the next level to the Board of County Commissioners to address this specific item on the agenda. I want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Horace.
Yes.
Rodney Sutton, 120 East Main Street, developer. Just want to make the comment that the development agreement has been signed by the property owner and submitted for acceptance. So the property owner has signed the development agreement, understanding that regardless of all these zoning categories and the different densities, that restriction would overpower, whether it's the flume, the rezone, or everything else, that it will also travel with the property, regardless of who owns it in the future. That is all part of the understanding of the developer. So there is no zoning, flume, et cetera, that actually specifies 1 per acre, or that's the one we'd be applying for. So we have to apply for the next best one, understanding that the development agreement restriction is in place. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the property owner understands that and has already even signed the agreement contingent on all these approvals.
Yes. And I would like to add to Mr. Rodney Sutton, just the question I wish it would have became up last time, but thank you, Mr. Sutton, for that remark. The development agreement, if it's signed and approved and blessed by the board, that is set in stone. To change that, it's 10 years. 10 years. And to get that change is like an act of Congress. So that development agreement, I don't care if it passed, if a potential buyer buy it 3 years, that development agreement, it runs, if it's blessed by the Board of County Commissioners, it runs concurrently with the land. So they just can't come and decide to do something different for the purpose of education.
10 years.
Yes, and to give that change is almost, sometimes literally almost impossible. We've had people to make that attempt. It's almost sometimes literally impossible to do.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to address the speaker that, first of all, I think we all empathize and can understand that it takes a lot of courage to come up and speak in front of a microphone. When we've been here a lot. It's still somewhat intimidating on this side, but it's certainly much more on that side of it. And, we're all Escambia citizens. We've got to face our friends in the store, and we are appointed, most of us, by our county commissioners. Other than myself, I'm at a wild card, I guess, but whatever. And you have that avenue to speak against it with the county commissioners as well. I always implore the developers to be good neighbors and to involve the community in anything that they're doing, because we are undergoing massive amounts of growth. That is not going to change. It's only going to continue to get worse, because I can tell you, we're from Perdido. All we were known for is coming in here and yelling and flipping out all the time. That is an accurate description of how we behaved out there, and it's because it's very frustrating. I have a place I have to drive by every day that I've fought adamantly against, and I lost. And it's part of the participation process, but you're not done, and the fix isn't in, and nobody up here is getting paid by anybody. Again, I just want to dispel the whole, it's about money. We don't have concurrency. You'd have an argument if there was concurrency that it would be about money. Now, I like the concurrency side of it, but quite frankly, the people who are serving you, your county commissioners, we work for the county commissioners, the staff answers to the county commissioners. So your avenue isn't here, and there's no, dark fix in, there's no dark fix in here with the staff members who work for the county members, is my point. And you certainly have avenue, and, you know, we want participation. And we encourage it, and we are grateful for the fact that you guys come here and talk, whether we agree or not. That's a whole nother, because there are also people that own the property and have rights to do what they want on that as well. And that's where the rub is.
All right. Next, we have Ms. O'Donovan. If you'll please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Again, my name is Sheila O'Donovan. I live at 550 North Chipper Road, Cantonment, Florida. Like I said, I'm not in agreement with this. And like I said, y'all are spotting all this stuff out as far as the laws and stuff like that. But there again, how is the public going to know what rule or format they have to go to? Okay? There's no, just like I had to call and talk to somebody to ask if we could do right, exactly. You know, about the petition, just like the other lady brought up too. It's unfair because the public is not getting their choice as far as getting this stuff out. And just like you're saying now, you know, because my son was told that if he misses this meeting, he's not going to be able to go to the next one because he was not able to be here. He couldn't change his appointments. And this mailing thing that goes out, like I said, only took us 11 days of notice. And how can you get together to get all these things for more people to get together to dispute this stuff when it's not done like that? And there's nothing telling you what you really can and can't do at these meetings. You know, like you said, you're only given 3 minutes to speak. And then really, just like when I got up before, I still didn't get any of my answers answered. You know, I didn't reply back to any of that. You know, just like I said, the master plan. When was the last time that was done? I know that has to do with the county, you know, and their planning and zoning. And it's a good thing that it is said in that, but why or how can we dispute these changes? Because like I said, this end of the country up there is country. And that's why we wanted to keep. And we're being forced to have to go along with this stuff because our rights are really not being heard, or people that want to dispute this. And that's you know, you already know my other agreements, and I'm still steadily against this, and I'm not the only one that's about this. There would have been a lot more people up here, I guarantee you, if we had more time on this, just like he was saying about the courtroom being full. And then it's like I said, you're just ignoring, you know, the fact of that. I agree that there should be growth, but it's not there for it to be there now. So that's what I want. I'd like my answers on these things and to find out about this. Because like I said, if we have to go, the public has to go to change it. Where do they go to change it? Y'all, you know, the way the shit goes. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I'm just upset about all this. And I steadily get upset about it because it's just like I said, we're just fucked. You know, y'all gonna keep on doing it. I'm sorry about my language.
Yes, please do watch your language.
Upset.
All right. So my suggestion would be, is that, one, anybody that does, like Horst mentioned, anybody that wants to speak on this before the county commissioners at their meeting, which is when?
August 1st.
Okay. Anybody that wants to speak on this specific item, right, that we're dealing with right now, the future land use, can come and speak. Anybody, okay? What there are restraints on, or what will be next with the rezoning hearing, which only folks that are here today can speak at the county commission meeting on that, even though it's the same property. It's just a different set of rules for rezoning because it's quasi-judicial. Whereas this that we're speaking about now, and even the development agreement that we had before, anybody can come and speak on both of those items that may have concern. And I would, you know, make note, I don't know if that's a morning meeting or an afternoon meeting on the 1st for the county commission.
It's an evening.
Evening?
It begins at 5:30, and these
Okay.
are scheduled at 5:46.
Right.
All right.
And Mr. Walker, and again, and I strongly encourage people, if you have, call us. Again, those other avenues that people are getting information from, they may not know all of the facts and all of the laws and rules, and sometimes they become more inflammatory than facts, and we have to deal with the facts. So I am here. She called me, I think I was at another meeting in my car when I received the telephone call. So we are willing to educate and inform so that people can come and have the right information, not inflammatory information that may not have no basis for commentary.
So, again, I would still encourage anybody that's concerned about this to show up on the 1st to speak on these two items, even though they might not be able to speak on the rezoning case when we get there, but they will have an opportunity to speak on those. I'd also encourage you or whoever to reach out to your county commissioner and let them know your thoughts, and also reach out again to the county staff on this to make sure that, you know, y'all are able to get as much information as you can so you can, you know, make an informed argument or case on your behalf. And I mean, that's what they're here to do, is to help you do that. So I know it's frustrating. I get it. And it's not a process that's easy to understand a lot of times. And but we're trying to follow the rules that we've got in front of us and do this the best that we know how. And I think there's still opportunity for you and your neighbors to weigh in on this issue. So next we got Josh. Did you want to come back up and speak on this, or you just wanted to speak on the? I had your form. I didn't know if you wanted to speak on this or not.
I don't have my phone this time. I guess I can ask this question. I wasn't going to say anything, but you brought it up. You had brought up that you're appointed by county commissioners to sit here. District 2, District 3, District 1, and these first couple are District 5, and it's pretty heated with the ladies and myself asking questions, and you're voting on these, and you're approving and staying away from them, but it's District 5 matters, and we would probably love to talk to that rep. That's all I'm asking. You brought it up, not me. That's it.
I would just say that, you know, I'm an at-large member, which is not to a district, but I'm, no, well, you can, whatever you want, but, and he typically is here. It's not like he's chronically not here, but
Sure.
again, we are citizens and have jobs and all that.
Yes, sir.
Stuff too. And you can appeal to him. However, our job is really clear-cut with what we learn. We're learning all the time. I've done this now, this is my 10th year, and I still don't feel like I've got it handled, but we're learning all the time to try to make this as best of an imperfect system as there is. What I would say is your county commissioner is where you really get your voice. That's why they're paid. That's why they're elected. We're not elected and we're not paid. So, but I'm just saying,
Right.
That's a great, you know, the chair has a great point that you have an avenue to talk, to call them. Again, my recommendation is, you know, don't just say, hey, we don't want this. Tell them exactly why, what the issues are. And like when somebody calls Horace, he's going to explain how this works and what would best suit your needs. And I'm telling the developer, boy, I'd be a good neighbor, and I'd be, you know, having an open line of communication with my neighbors, because that will make their life easier. And again, that's their property, and you don't want somebody telling you what to do on your property, right? But
That's why I moved to Molino, so I didn't have HOA.
right, exactly, right. So anyway.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. No, that's great.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. A lot of the times the people's complaints isn't with what's happening right there at the zoning there. It's the development that comes from the rezoning. And that falls fully with development services, what that is. I mean, yes, we get planned unit developments, but that's one every like year or two? Yeah. So in this sense, it's usually the development that people raise questions with. So that's where it comes back fully to Horace's department, development services, where you can raise that question to, and ultimately those development orders are signed by the county commissioner. So you do have that avenue entirely.
So I have a question. I'm an aircraft mechanic. I'm not a very smart person, right? But I do have a question. And Mr. Horace, is that correct? Absolutely. Okay. Mr. Horace has brought up lawyers, and he's like, hey, my lawyer will help me out, right? So I kind of want to go on this. It's called precedence, right? In law, is that right? I'm sure that's right. Like once you hear a case, who's a lawyer? Once you hear a case and it's done, that sets a precedence. But once you change the land, right, and now it becomes whatever this is, from agricultural to rural community right here, and this green starts growing. Doesn't that set a precedence? And then you start and you say, oh, I'm going to keep this going to this. Isn't that a question?
Again, anything is always possible. Anything, I wanted to carry out, anything is always possible. However, when it comes to land, land has to stand on its own merits. It has to stand on its own. There are certain rules that each piece has to met. If just because it may meet one of the criteria, if the rest of the criteria don't follow, that don't mean that you're going to get all of them. They got to be all of them. So to answer your question, there's always a possibility, but in land use, the land, the surrounding area, those things, they do matter. So it does not always set a precedence, but things can happen, but it does not when you deal with land use matters and issues. It does not. Because there have been cases where people have said no, and they thought, well, because I did it before. Still, the facts applies.
So the argument of conforming to the surrounding areas doesn't matter.
We have to look at everything.
Okay.
Everything. I want to be clear with you. Everything.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, do we have any further questions for the applicant or staff from the board?
To partially answer the last lady's, to speak, her question about when was the last time the master plan was reviewed, Horace can jump in at any time, but the sector plan is kind of what we're talking about here. And there was a time frame where there was a rash of opt-outs, and the sector plan was discussed and looked at in depth by this board and by staff. So the sector plan has been under a lot of scrutiny for the last few years. It's been looked at. There's a master plan in Beulah. There was a master plan for the OLF 8. But to answer your question, ma'am, the sector plan has been looked at and scrutinized quite a bit over the past few years.
Counting for all these subdivisions that's coming in now too?
I'm sorry?
All the new subdivisions, like I said, that are popping up all over, are they included in that, okay, into that determination of how they're changing the land use?
Okay.
So a master plan doesn't really touch on that, especially because then you start touching into private property rights in Florida, and actually that starts becoming a whole other thing constitutionally. So a master plan can
All right.
dictate an overlay, but it's not.
We're going to keep.
And I
Thank-
think, and what I do, Ms. Donovan, I think there are some things that you're mixing together that may not go together. So I will talk to you offline on that, because some things are being mixed that does not always go together. Not saying what you're saying may not be true, but it may not always be going together in every case. So I will talk to you afterwards, okay?
Okay.
Glad to.
Okay. We do have another speaker for this case, Mr. Jim Connors. If you'll please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning, Jim Connors. I'm at 925 Shawn Road, Molino, about a mile north of the property in question. The residents are correct. We are under assault. Pure and simple, we're under assault. The entire area, just in the last 2 years, is being transformed right in front of our eyes. The infrastructure is not there. I got to send my kids all the way up to Northview because there's no room in the school right down the street. My kids are on the bus over 2 hours a day because there's no room at the school right down the street on 95A where I am. I was here for this meeting, for this 230 acres when they changed it from ag to rural residential, 1 house per 4 acres. As a matter of fact, I was going to purchase the property, so this didn't happen. I was too late. Now, I came to the meeting, and I said, well, they're going to put 1 house on 4 acres. That's not horrible, but the first thing that somebody told me was, that's the beginning. The game is you go from 1 house on 4 acres, and then you go down to 2 houses on 1 acre, and then maybe you even go down to 1 house on a 1/4 acre. And basically, we moved there to be in the country, and now the city is being deposited on top of us. and we have no voice. Everybody here is right. We have no. I'm here because I work for myself. I can be here anytime, any day. Everybody else in the neighborhood I've talked to was against this. They're at work. They can't take off work, and especially in the fact that you get notified in, 10 days. Matter of fact, in a previous situation I've been involved in, I never got a notification. So the bottom line is, nobody wants this but the developers. I understand there's big money involved. It's very, very difficult to stop big money. You need lawyers, you need engineers, you need time. And most of these people don't have that. I've been before this board several times, and the only way that I triumphed is I had to hire 2 lawyers and an engineer. And I'm still fighting that battle, and I'm north of $150,000 right now. Most people can't do that. And what's going to happen is, and I'm already talking to the neighbors, they're all talking about moving. Walnut Hill, Laurel Hill, Century. They're talking about getting the hell out already because we can't stop this, because you people control our future. And there's not a damn thing we can do about it, and they all know that. Unless everybody's willing to show up and spend the money and fight the fight. And the entire system is built against that. It should be here 6:30 p.m. for any of these meetings so regular folks can have their voice heard and not be run over like the peasants that we are. But I'm over my time, but I've said my piece. That's my 2 cents. And I understand it doesn't matter what I say, what the residents say, because the monetary forces rule the day. And everybody in the room knows that. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Connors.
All right, thank you.
All right, that was the last speaker for this hearing. Again, board, if you got any questions for the applicant or staff at this time, we can knock that out before I'll accept a motion on this case. All right, anybody have a motion that they'd like to make on this public hearing?
I'll go ahead and recommend approval of SSA 2024-03, the proposed FLU amendment.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table for approval of the future land use map change. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Is there discussion on the motion at hand? All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries. At this time, we will move back into the rezoning meeting and adjourn the regular board meeting of the planning board at this time. I will remind the public that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and those speaking today must fill out a form. In this meeting, on these cases, you must be here to speak at the Board of County Commissioners meeting, unlike what we just did. And all of your comments in this meeting will be under oath. So, all right, we've got the rezoning application for consideration is case Z-2024-08, which is request rezoning of off Rocky Branch Road from agricultural district 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres to rural residential district 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres, as requested by Rodney Sutton and Willie Mitchum, agents for Charles Brooks and Lisa Brooks, the owners. Members of the board, has there been any ex parte communication between you, the applicant, of the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? Please also disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
No to all, Mr. Chair.
No to all.
No to all.
No to all.
Okay, staff was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties.
Yes, sir.
Was notice of the hearing posted on the subject property.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are y'all okay with staff presenting the photos and aerials? Okay.
All right, this is Z 2024-08. Here is our location map showing the subject parcel. This shows the existing zoning, which is agriculture, and the proposed zoning of rural residential. This is our existing future land use, but now it's been changed to rural community. It's showing the existing land use in the general area. There are prime soils identified on the property. And here's that aerial map showing the subject property. This is the notice of public hearing sign that was placed on the property along 95A. This again is looking north along North Highway 95A. This is looking northeast towards site. I believe this is from the Baranoak Creek Road. Looking east towards the site. Looking southeast towards the site. Looking south along North Highway 95A. And looking west from site across North Highway 95A. That concludes our maps
All
and
right.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, will the applicant please come forward and just state your name and address for the record? As an attorney, we don't have to swear you in.
Bill Mitchum, 501 Comandencia Street, Pensacola, Florida, 32502.
Okay, and then did you receive a copy of the rezoning hearing package with findings of facts?
Yes, I did.
And do you understand that you have the burden of providing by substantial competent evidence that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is not in conflict with any portion of the county's land development code?
Yes, I do.
All right, you're good to go.
We've reviewed the staff findings. To the extent not already incorporated, we'd ask that they be incorporated into the record. They do support all 5 criteria. The first criteria being the proposed zoning is consistent with the FLU category, which now is rural community. It's consistent with the land development code. The rezoning is compatible with surrounding uses within 500-foot radius. There's single-family dwellings, mobile homes, and vacant land. There's not spot zoning with regard to this, and it's compatible with the existing surrounding development patterns, which primarily remain large residential lots. 4 acres in size, that's right. So on the, this is a 49-acre parcel, so 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres, that's approximately 11 dwelling units.
All right, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Staff, do you want to go through your presentation at this time?
I'll get my findings pulled up here. All right, again, this is the property off of Rocky Branch. Concerning criterion A, consistent with the comprehensive plan, we have found the proposed amendment to RR, rural residential, is consistent with the future land use category of rural community, as stated in the comprehensive plan, future land use 1.3.1 of the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan 2030. The parcel is currently under review for a FLU change from Ag to RC, which is taking place. The rural community future land use category allows for the range of uses at the maximum residential density, 2 dwelling units per acre, for the desired rezoning request of rural residential. If approved, the rezoning will allow for more compact development pattern that serves the rural and agriculture areas of Escambia County. Additionally, in accordance with Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use 3.1.4 of the Comprehensive Plan, the rezoning is consistent with the rural community future land use category. We're permitting rezoning that allows for higher residential densities in the rural community future land use category. Staff finds that the other provisions as referenced above for meeting criterion A have been met, and that the proposed rezoning request from agriculture to rural residential provides for the protection of rural agriculture areas with a low residential development pattern in alignment with the stated goals and policy of the Escambia County Comprehensive Plan. The rural residential district is largely self-sustaining and generally limited to detached single-family dwellings on large lots, consistent with the rural land use and limited infrastructure. Clustering of smaller residential lots may occur where needed to protect prime farmland from non-agriculture uses. The district allows public facilities and services necessary for basic health, safety, and welfare of rural populations and other non-residential uses that are compatible with agriculture community character. Concerning criterion B, consistent with the Land Development Code, we find that the proposed amendment to a rural residential is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Land Development Code. The current zoning of agriculture allows primarily for agriculture and silviculture activities with single-family dwellings at low density, 1 dwelling per 20 acres, for the needs of farm-based populations. Rural residential zoning will provide a greater density than the agriculture district while still supporting small-scale farming activities. Furthermore, per section 3-2.3F, rezoning to rural residential, the rezoning request is consistent with the provision of the Land Development Code, as rural residential is appropriate to provide transitions between areas zoned or used for agriculture and areas zoned and used for rural mixed use or low density residential. The request to rezone rural residential would allow single-family development on large lots 4 acres or more. No major retail sales and services are allowed. There are indications of prime soils on the property, and an environmental assessment will be necessary prior to site development approval. Additionally, in a memo dated June 14, 2024, from Transportation and Traffic Operations staff, comments have been provided concerning the rezoning. Transportation and Traffic Operations has no objection to the land use change. The planned subdivision will be required to meet the Land Development Code standards, including roadway widths and connecting intersection improvements to Highway 95 if required. Please note that this review is solely based on the rezoning application submitted in the packet, so the comments above hold no bearing on any transportation traffic operation comments made during the development review process. Concerning criterion C, compatible with surrounding uses, the proposed amendment is compatible with the surrounding existing uses in the area. Within the 500-foot radius area, properties are within the agriculture, rural residential, and public zoning districts and consist of single-family dwellings, mobile homes, or vacant land. Lot sizes range from 2 ± acres to 233 acres. The property abuts railroad right-of-way to the east, which further contributes to compatibility of the rezoning request. Concerning criterion D, appropriate if spot zoning, findings show that the proposed rural residential zoning would not establish or reinforce a condition of spot zoning. The adjacent parcel to the northwest is zoned rural residential, while the large parcel to the west is abutting the subject property is currently zoned rural residential and has a proposed rezoning of rural mixed use. The proposed rural residential zoning district of the subject property will be transitional in character to the rural mixed use zoning of the large abutting parcel. Concerning criterion E, appropriate with changed or changing conditions, findings show that the land uses or development conditions within the area surrounding the properties have changed. The property to the west has requested a rezoning from rural residential to rural mixed use, a higher density mixed use zoning district. Rural mixed use allows for 2 dwelling units an acre and a small scale commercial type development, and the proposed rezoning to rural residential of the subject property will provide an appropriate transition between the rural mixed use and the agriculturally zoned properties in the surrounding area. Development within the area has remained as large residential lots with activities that support agriculture uses. The request for rural residential, the potential uses, densities, and intensities allowed by that district would be compatible with the existing surrounding development pattern. That concludes staff's findings for this case.
All right. Thank you. Board, do we have any questions for staff at this time? Nope. Okay. At this time, we will go into our public speakers again. you got to speak for this particular item, you got to speak here to be able to speak at the Board of County Commissioners. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that in case, and if we get through everybody and you didn't get to speak, let me know and we'll make sure you got a form filled out and we'll get you up here, okay? All right, Ms. Colburn, we'll start with you.
All right.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
It's Sharon Colburn, 1100 Ridgeway, Cantonment, Florida. So I'm actually finding this quite interesting because I'm wondering what would have happened if we would have done this property first. Because everything that has been done in a manipulative manner, as I'm watching, to get everything approved. Because if we would have done this property first, then there would have been a different precedence for the property surrounding it. I'm also seeing that with the development that, or the change of zoning that has been approved, that I'm pretty sure that this property is going to be 2 units per acre sooner rather than later. What makes me sad about this is that all of us in Escambia County are going to be the ones that are going to be paying for the profit of this subdivision with roads, with schools, with our personal safety, with our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colburn.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? State your name and address.
My name is Sheila O'Donovan. My address is 550 North Chipper Road. And here again, the same process. That's all property concerns, around my neighborhood, and I am not in agreement with it. Like I said, I'm going to try to fight this every way I can. I appreciate your listening to it, and I hope that you'll rule in our favor.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Joshua Robertson.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address.
Joshua Robertson, 6747 Highway 99. Hey, good morning again. Thanks for hearing me today. Just a couple reverberate the same thing with the changing of the zoning. Back to article number 5 that I brought up about the changing of the quality of life. What I didn't address earlier is just down from here at the Highway 29 and 196 interchange. Accident after accident after accident. County did a great job installing light posts there for the nighttime use, but the accidents happen during the day. Let's increase this housing to 2 dwellings per acre. Increase more traffic flow that way. Then the intersection right here, 196 and 195A, it's going to be just more accidents there. So we're just going to keep piling traffic lights there. What's the density going to be? The zoning is going to create this. You bring up compatibility again after I just asked, is compatibility there? Are you going to use what's there? You just brought it up numerous times when you read it. Compatibility. So I feel like I was snowballed when I asked before, but thank you for hearing us. Thanks for hearing the citizens' concerns today.
Now, yes, sir. Now let me, because see, because these things are governed by state laws and rules, our commentary has to be per case. We just can't, let me first, education, I'm getting there. Now, in this case, because of the zoning category for this property right here, the zoning category for this property, if it's approved by the planning board and the BCC, it must be 1 unit per 4 acres. In other words, a house per 4 acres. And looking at our laws and our rules, our regulations, and according to all of the principles of proper planning and smart growth, when you are budding agrarian agricultural lands, you want housing, but you want it to be consistent with large lots. So therefore, in this area, one house per 4 acres, that is consistent, that is compatible with the agrarian agricultural lifestyle, because they have large parcels of land. So you can have a control, you can have a control, nice little hub, large acres, 4 acres with farm animals, decent, in a reasonable manner, under control, because you cannot, in this portion right here, it cannot be two. It got to be 1 unit, 1 house per 4. So that's what I was saying about compatibility. I could not sell all of that at that time. It was not the proper venue. But because of these, now I can say that, because this would govern the way that the houses and what the land and what the structure and what the lot size. This zoning category right here for this piece of land. Now, you may not agree with what I'm saying, but this is the state law. I just want to be clear, not confrontational at all.
No, I'm not being confrontational. I just, yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Next, we have Jim Connors. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Name and address.
Jim Connors, 925 Sean Road, Molino, Florida. That's another point that he just brought up. The traffic is getting extremely bad up in the north, and a lot of deadly accidents on 29. I mean, it's typical now. I got a Doberman in the backyard, and every time that Doberman's howling, it's in response to police sirens, and it's always a wreck, and a lot of times it's a fatal wreck. And what we're doing here in developing 95A, we're turning 95A into 29. And it's 2 lanes wide on 95A. So we're going to have a huge increase in traffic with all these new developments coming in. And it's not going to be able to support it. Of course, I guess then the next thing is 95A is going to be widened to 4 lanes and traffic lights and everything of that nature. So this will destroy the rural character of the area, which is why I went up there. I mean, that's going to be turned into another Beulah. I mean, it's coming, and it's coming quicker than anybody is anticipating. So all I'm saying is just keep that in mind when you guys vote on these things. It is going to have a serious impact on the way of life of the residents in the area. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tina Stewart.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Name and address.
My name is Tina Stewart. I live at 3160 Highway 95A North, Cantonment, Florida. Gentlemen, my house is right down from where this is planning to be put. And at night, it's like a drag strip through there. Cars nonstop, going, going, going. During the day, the cars have increased already in the last 6 months. I don't know that putting all of these residential areas into this area is going to work. It's so congested trying to get out in the mornings to go to work. It's congested trying to get home. And you're adding more and more houses out there, and you're stripping the land. I mean, God gave us this land for a reason. It wasn't to keep putting houses on it and keep filling it up. We've got to have some wood somewhere. I'm going to be a great-grandmother in December, and I would love for my great-granddaughter to be able to live at my place and not have to walk outside and see right behind my fence a subdivision. I raise cows, I raise miniature horses, I raise sheep. And I want to keep my community the farmland that it was meant to be. It's been that way for generations out there. And I know that the younger generation does not want to carry on those traditions. So they're selling off the property to the developers, and they're the first ones to come in and start ripping it. Well, I'm not selling mine. I'm trying to leave my property to my grandkids and my great-grandkids because I want them to have a peaceful life out there in the woods and be able to grow up and be happy and not have to live in Pensacola where there's so much going on. It's a fast-paced life, and I don't like it. I'm happy out there to sit on my porch. I listen to the coyotes in the evening when the train comes through. I love it out there. But these developers are really, really pushing all of these subdivisions down our throat to the point where, you know, what do? We have no say-so anymore. And that's the sad part. You know, we've worked our whole lives to have something good to live on and to have a good country life. And now it's turning into city. Where do we go next? You know, I'm not selling my property, but I don't want to be built on top of either. I would love to be able to walk out my door and be able to breathe in the fresh air and see the woods around my house. If you keep letting these developers do this, you're taking away from us country folk, and that's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. All right, board, are there any questions for the applicant or staff? Did y'all want to make any last comments, or are you good?
Yeah, I think we're okay.
All right. All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion if someone would like to make one.
Motion for approval for Z 2024-08.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? The next rezoning application for consideration is case Z-2024-09, which requests rezoning of 4100 North Highway 95A block from rural residential district 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres to rural mixed use district 2 dwelling units per acre as requested by Rodney Sutton and William Mitchum, agents for Charles Brooks and Lisa Brooks, the owners. Members, have there been any ex parte communication between you, the applicant, the applicant's agents, attorneys, or witnesses with fellow planning board members or anyone from the general public prior to this hearing? Have you visited the subject property? And please also disclose if you are a relative or business associate of the applicant or the applicant's agent.
No to all.
No to all.
No to all.
No at all.
No to all.
All right. At this time, staff will have you go over the photographs and aerials.
Excellent, thank you. Here we have our location map, again, showing the subject property. We have our existing zoning map showing rural residential. And our proposed zoning showing rural mixed use. Future land use map of rural community. And this is our existing land use map surrounding the property. We provided a flood zone map showing a small portion in the south half. And a wetlands map for any type of national wetland inventories and streams as shown in Escambia County GIS. This is an aerial photograph of the property. This is our notice of public hearing sign placed on the property. Again, this is looking north along North Highway 95A, looking northeast towards the site, looking east towards the site, looking southeast towards the site, looking south along North Highway 95A, and looking west from the site across North Highway 95A. That concludes our maps and photos.
All right, thank you.
Could you go back to the current zoning? Go to the proposed.
All right, and then I'll just for the record, also ask staff, was notice of the hearing sent to all interested parties?
Yes, sir.
And was notice of the hearing posted on the property? We
Yes,
just
sir.
saw it was. All right, I'll have the applicant come up.
Okay, this is the 230 acre parcel. As indicated, we're looking to rezone from rural residential to rural mixed use. There was a question earlier about the order of operation. Noting that the development agreement that was approved would apply to this. That needed to be approved, I think, first, because otherwise we would have had the zoning for 2 times the density. We've capped it with 305 units, and on this site, that would be 294 units, where otherwise it could be a 460 unit development. So just again, noting that as far as this property is concerned, the development agreement does, well, all of the properties, the development agreement caps the total number of dwelling units. We've reviewed the staff findings, and we're in agreement with them. They do support all 5 criteria relative to the rezoning.
And if I may, Mr. Wilson, I want to thank the attorney for making that comment. If someone stated that we sort of took these things out of alignment to show some type of nefarious action, we have to do these things according to rules and laws. The way that we did this particular case, it was according to the rules, state laws. If we would have done anything other, my staff could have been held for being liable for not following state laws and rules and procedures. So everybody may not always understand, and that may get out that the county tried to sneak this in by doing something that's absolutely false. I will say it again. Whoever put that out and say it respectfully, we are following the laws as the way they were supposed to be presented according to land use rules and laws that are set and that have been set. So I want to say that respectfully.
All right, thank you. So let me just clear up the number of dwellings on this property, which is 230 acres. What was the agreement again?
So that if you take all 3 parcels together in the development agreement, you've got a 26 acre, a 49 acre, and a 230 acre parcel. That all adds up to 305. So the total cap on density under the development agreement that relates to all 3 parcels is 305. 1 per acre.
Okay.
We're talking just with this one alone, 50% difference nearly. I mean, that's a big number. So, I mean, it's a lot less density.
So it looks like there will be 305 total. The 50 acres, you're going to put 11, you plan to put 11 on the 50
That's right,
acres.
the 49, yep.
But that would leave public math for a foreign rain. This will be challenging. That'll leave us about 294 units on about 255 acres.
Yeah, so let's see, it was 305, take out the 11, so that's 294. It'd be 294 for the rest.
294 on the remaining 255 acres.
Correct.
Any further questions? Well, if we do, we'll get you back up here.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. Okay. We'll move back into our speakers. Again, you got to speak on this case to be able to speak again down the road. So, Ms. Colburn, we'll have you up here.
You're still under oath, just state your
Okay.
name and address.
Sharon Colburn, 1100 Ridgeway, Cantonment, Florida. I'm standing up here just so that I have the opportunity to speak at the next meeting because it doesn't matter.
Let me say something. I mean, if you're gonna, you need to state what you're going to say, especially in this one. If you have concerns, you need to state those concerns, because the record, if your concerns is not stated at this one, you won't be on record. So if you got concerns, you need to state it here so it can be on the record going forward, because this is the quasi-judicial proceeding. Just one of education, that's all.
So, and
My-
I'll say, Ms. Colburn, and we'll hold your time for a second. And just for everybody else's, so we're sitting here as judges for a case that they're saying, you know, we've met these conditions, here's why, here's the proof. The county comes in, sometimes says they've met all, they've met one of whatever, and they say why, and then we go back and forth. And the public has the opportunity to present evidence as well in the case that we are able to utilize to make our decision on. So that's what Horace is kind of referencing, is you can, we'd like you to give some evidence of why you are against this, and so when you go to the county commission, that's what you'll be able to speak on to in that
Mr.
meeting.
Chair, and to be more specific on the 5 criteria, and I just tell you that, I want to be very.
Okay, sprawl.
Thank you.
It definitely doesn't control sprawl. It definitely affects quality of life for everybody in that area. It does not meet the criteria. I'm sorry, but one house, per acre is definitely not rural. Rural is, my property, I have one house per 20 acres out there, It's having the opportunity not to raise one horse on your 4 acres. It's the opportunity to raise, 50 cows on your, on your property. It doesn't. It definitely affects everyone's quality of life. We've talked about traffic. We've talked about safety. I'm sorry. It's not safe. The intersection at 95A and 29, the intersection at Quintet Road and 95A, the 196 and Highway 29, those have to be addressed. And who's going to pay for them? The citizens are, not the person who's developing it. We don't have enough schools. That's the quality of life. We don't have enough schools for these children to go to. Okay, the schools are full up in the north of the county. There's not any schools. That's quality of life. Okay, getting out on Highway 29, I'm on Neal, getting out on Highway 29 right now is impossible in the morning. That's quality of life. Sitting in stop and go traffic from I-10 all the way to my house every afternoon, taking me an extra 30 minutes in the afternoon, that's quality of life. This is affecting quality of life. Okay, that's one of the criteria. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. O'Donovan?
Previously sworn, just state your name and address.
My name is Sheila O'Donovan. My address is 550 North Chipper Road. Okay, I just seen on that map where you were showing the water. So therefore, how is these developments not gonna stop the corruption of the natural springs that are there? Okay? That's one of my biggest complaints, along with the density, along with the traffic, and the disappearance of our wildlife and our vegetation. Like she said, all the trees are being gone, so all this is gonna have waylation as far as what you showed on there as far where this water is, okay? So how is that being handled too, to make sure that that's not contaminated? or dried up?
Okay, so what, at this stage, we're just dealing with the zoning of the actual property itself. And
But you said I
and
have-
further down the line, when they go through development review process, that is when
I have to bring
Development
that up?
Services will
Okay, well, I still
evaluate
wanted
all
it
that
brought
before
up
they
to
get a
this point,
development
that
order.
These are my complaints, okay?
Understood, understood.
Because they are gonna affect, they're already affecting all of this now. And I am not in agreement with this either, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know, Josh, did you want to speak on this case as well?
Joshua Robertson, 6747 Highway 99. First, Mr. Horst, I want to apologize. I jumped the gun. It was this case here about the number of houses. So I do want to apologize for the last case, okay? Same thing, quality of life. I brought up Section 5 earlier. But safety issues, concern with the zoning, back to that. So there's 2, 3. I want to bring up the impermeable surfaces, right? So you get into that with what you just brought up. But am I allowed to ask a question to the board in reference, Mr. Ingwell? Can I ask you a question? You had brought up the acreage, and then you brought up the 50 acres, and I just want to go back to I think is the attorney, right, sir? He had brought up, because he had made mention, and he said 3 parcels, and he brought this up. I'm just going off of this, right? So 3 parcels in question, but there were 50 acres for 11 houses he brought up, and then you had made a question to him about, so the rest of the dwellings would go on to the other, but isn't there a 3rd parcel that's just for a retention pond? So that means the dwellings would only go on to the rest of this parcel. So the 3rd parcel is not even included in that land use for the houses. So then it gets further condensed down. So just out of curiosity about that, so it's going to be sandwiched back down to this. So moving forward, I just, again, with quality of life and changing the landscape and the structure, and then the public safety issue. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart?
Previously sworn, just state your name and address.
Tina Stewart, 3160 Highway 95A North, Cantonment, Florida. Gentlemen, I just really wish that y'all could put yourself in our shoes. You know, I worry about so much out there, and the growth is just making it even more worrisome as to get from point A to point B. We only have 2 grocery stores out there. Granted, we have Dollar Generals and Family Dollars, but there's 2 grocery stores. The schools are full. I mean, this is impacting all of our lives. And not to mention what's going to happen, you know, when all the wildlife has nowhere to go. I mean, people are hitting deer on the highway now because of all the construction going on. And I don't want my family and my grandkids and great-grandkids to have to deal with living in a concrete place. I feel like we're just being smothered. I mean, please put yourself in our place. We moved out there for a purpose, and that was to be able to have a country life. If I wanted to live in Pensacola, I lived in Pensacola. I moved out there 26 years ago, and it's been the happiest 26 years of my life. I got away from all of the things here that were pulling me down. And when I went to the country, I was open-armed welcomed by everybody in the community. And our community has been small. And now you're wanting to keep building and building and building. What are we going to have? We're going to have a little Pensacola is what we're going to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Chavers, if you'll please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. My name is Adam Chavers, 125 North Chipper Road. Just like Ms. Stewart just said, I moved out from Pensacola. I moved to the country to get away and start like a homestead. It is disheartening seeing all this new development whenever I get it all established. I have a donkey, I have sheep, I have livestock, and ducks and chickens and everything. And it seems like this has changed really, really quick from ag to rural residential without me knowing. Someone bought it, changed it to rural residential, and now it's RMU. It's going to be. It just seems like it's really, really quickly happening, and I don't agree with just the density of the houses that will be going there. I didn't look at all the plans, so I don't know the details, but I know also lots of traffic there. I see Highway 95A, people going through there, lots of wrecks happening. I'm sure that's going to increase the infrastructure. Everything's going to have to change, and it hasn't yet. But yeah, cars flip there all the time. I see, I moved my fence line back on 95A just so I didn't get lots of damage to my fence because cars wreck there. So that'll increase. Let's see. I just see the rural lifestyle changing out there. Things are going to change for the worse, and I don't like it. So, yeah, I moved out there to avoid all this, and now it's changing. So I guess that's all I really have to say about it.
Thank you. If y'all want to make any closing statements.
I just want to make sure that the staff findings were incorporated since we didn't run through them on this particular one. So just want to make sure they're incorporated in the record, and that's all.
We certainly can go through those.
Don't necessarily need to on my
Okay.
account. I just want to make sure they're part of the record.
I'll just
All right.
confirm that we found that it did meet all criterion of the rezoning request. I would just note for consideration that the development agreement is what's going to dictate the density on this thing. Although that the rural mixed use does allow for 2 dwelling units per acre, the development agreement would restrict that to the agreed upon 305 for the total piece. That allows the developer more flexibility when it relates to potential for on-site wetlands and site development in general. But it also, as they realize, that it would restrict the density to that overall number of 305. So that's what's important for this case.
Yeah, and we recognize that, obviously. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, are there any questions for the applicant or staff?
And because the way that this was done in an orderly fashion, the staff, we concurred. Everyone agreed with the order of this, so that's why staff is in agreement it provide the protections as well as the opportunity for sound and smart development.
All right, any questions? Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Connors, I think that your paper got stuck to the person above yours, but please come on down. I'm glad you said something.
Just to clarify, this is kind of a confusing situation, I think, for first timers. So we actually go through like 4 cases for these 2 developments. Is that basically how it works?
Essentially, yes. So we have to take each piece of property at a time for each case and look at it.
But the first part is what? The second part is zoning, the first part is.
So the
future
first part with
land
this one
use.
is actually the development agreement.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have a development agreement governing these 3 parcels.
And then you go to the zoning.
Well, we have the zonings for the ones, then it's actually for future land use, then zoning. And it's
Okay.
kind of, it seems like a lot, but it's convoluted
Right.
because it's the way that it's.
So there's basically 2 cases for each property is what there's. what's going
Yes
on.
and no. There's certain
Yeah.
ones that don't need it and certain ones that do, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
This larger parcel already had the future land use. The other one on the northeast side did not, and that's why they had
Gotcha.
that before we could do the rezoning. Yes, sir.
Right.
He swore me in earlier. Jim Connors, 925 Shawn Road, Molino. Like I said earlier, I'm about a mile down the street from this one. I was here when they changed it from ag to rural residential, 1 house per 4 acres. that's, that's not too terrible considering, it's an agrarian community. Now we're talking, instead of 57 houses on 230 acres, now we're talking 294, almost 300 houses on 230 acres. I don't think that's a conducive usage for the area. I mean, up in that area, there's a lot of 5 to 30 acre parcels. So basically, we're sticking a residential, high-density community right into the agrarian district is what we're doing, with the resulting impact that the previous speakers have talked about, the traffic, the sprawl, the lack of infrastructure, the safety issues, the quality of life issues. Earlier, we just, there was a convenience store approved, I think it's a gas station, Circle K at Quintet 95A. That's going to impact 95A. We've already gotten a development next to the Molino Firehouse. There's another one at Quintet in 95A that they've been working on. Multiple other ones along 29. Like I say, the infrastructure is not there right now presently, and on top of that, basically drastically altering the lifestyle of the community that's there now. And like I said, along 29, I guess that's got a lot more ability to absorb this. 95A is a 2-lane road, and it's already a dangerous road. Right in front of my house, had a guy killed on a motorcycle. I had a concrete truck turned over in my front yard. I mean, every day I said there's people passing each other constantly in front of my house. Dump trucks, logging trucks. It's a very dangerous road right now. And all we're doing is increasing the density, increasing the density, increasing the density. It's going to get a whole lot worse. Like I said, 57 houses on that acreage is maybe something that we can live with if we have to live with it. 294 acres, 294 houses on that site is a quite different proposition. But I appreciate listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that was the last of our speakers there. Again, any questions for staff or the applicant?
In prepping and reading the package yesterday, I know there was a analysis done by the school board. Can we go to that? I'm pretty sure it was in this one, but they did an estimate on the impact on the area schools.
It may be in the working case file.
Because I know that's a concern. That was brought up by some of the speakers.
It may be, that may have been associated with a small-scale map amendment.
Okay.
Rachel.
Would it be appropriate to at least look at that here, Horace?
Well, let's see if it's in there, if they made it at the school board.
Rachel's looking to see if that information is available for this particular case. I would note that when subdivisions are approved, are reviewed by county staff, we do have concurrent review with the school board. So information based upon the numbers of projected students, based upon the numbers of projected lots in development, that information is reviewed by school board and is tracked in association with the school board and the county.
I think it was in relation to the 305, the 305 cap. So
The
maybe it
actual
wasn't
development
this particular rezoning, but in the
Yeah,
the
it appears
agreement.
that the applicant provided a worksheet from the school board related to the small-scale map amendment for the other piece.
And if we, that wasn't, Rachel, was that part of the rezoning? Not for this. No, so if that have to be discussed, that gotta be brought into evidence to make sure we respect the rules of the process. Because if not, we could be challenged for not respecting the rules of the process, okay?
Okay, I guess the point was that, for Ms. Colburn, that is looked at.
Yeah.
As part of the process, and there was a worksheet where they had an estimate for the impact on the area schools.
Can I ask a question? Do they take into account the other properties that are in the process of being built, like the 440 off of Neal Road? Is that taken into account when they look into that?
Yes, so the subdivision and concurrent agreement that we have with the school board, all those numbers are provided, and they essentially sign off on the projections of those, middle school, elementary. So that information is provided and required by the Land Development Code. So the school board does review it.
All right, any further questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, one way or the other for this rezoning case.
I'm going to make a motion, but just to give you background, as what's been mentioned by my fellow board members, we base our decision on the criteria. That's what we go off of, the 5 criteria. And based on staff's findings, I'm going to make a recommendation for approval for this case.
I'll second
Got a
it.
motion, I got a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, my only
Yep.
discussion would be for the people in the crowd. I've sat there and I presented a case, and I am 0 for 1. I lost my only case to this board that I sat on, and I'm still mad about it, but and I think I was right, but that's irrelevant. I just tell you that while it's frustrating, it is the process.
And I'll say something, as always, and I've said this numerous times. This is the rezoning of the land. This is not the actual development. There's a whole process for the development. There's a whole department here in Escambia County dedicated to just getting that development order. So there's plenty of ample time for the public to weigh in during those times as well.
Let me ask you something. Okay, you're saying, like I said, there's 4 stages you go through. Okay, I know they gotta go to the county first for the landing and zoning, okay? The public don't hear about that, all right? They don't know when these development hearings are, or what's involved, which stages you gotta show up for to dispute all this stuff. In other words, unless you go on the website and look at your agenda that you got. I think is unfair too.
Yeah,
Because you should be letting them at the very beginning to be able to start disputing this stuff.
And you can, this is the thing, that's why it's important for people to go to the right source.
Right, I understand that.
Come
but
to
how
the right,
many-
we would definitely, and I'll talk offline, come to the right source and we could let you, give you information so that you can stay engaged. Now, we can't, because we got so many projects, we can't make sure each person is engaged, but we can let you know, but you gotta come to the right source, and in the development service department,
How do you get led to the right source?
I would like us to come to me and I'll talk to you afterwards. I will let you know, definitely. Come to the right source is very important.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the table. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And these rezoning cases and other items we talked about today will be put in front of the Board of County Commissioners August 1st, 5:30 PM, downtown Pensacola. Again, to speak on the 2 rezoning cases we just had, you had to speak here today to speak on the development agreement or the future land use map amendment. Anybody from the public may go down and speak on those 2 items in front of the county commissioners. So that was the last rezoning case that we had. So I will adjourn that meeting and we will go back into our regular planning board meeting. We do have 2 other items here. A public hearing concerning the review of an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Section 4-4.5 Airport and Airfield Planning Districts, that the board review and recommend to the Board of County Commissioners for adoption an ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 4, Section 4-4.5, Airport and Airfield Planning Districts to remove the prohibition of outdoor storage in Airfield Planning District 1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Andrew Homer, Development Services Department. Can we pull up the draft ordinance, please? And scroll down for me. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so I had brought this to the board as a discussion item. You agreed to proceed forward. Got clearance from the commissioner to proceed. So I've written the ordinance. The list of uses under the AIPD zones are a little bit different than what you see under zoning district. Zoning districts will tell you, list the allowed uses. Given the unique nature of the use of these zones, it lists the prohibited uses. So what I did, went through and scratched out the outdoor storage, which is what we actually wouldn't mind people having, and then just did the renumbering. So straightforward change.
Awesome.
I think we had a fair amount of discussion last time on this. I think, love that we're getting it done.
Yep.
All right. Any comments, questions, concerns?
So Drew, we're talking about, boats, RVs, type stuff like that.
Boats,
That's
RVs.
Not, not fuel tanks and,
No.
No.
Only if the zoning district allows for outdoor
Right,
storage,
right.
by the way. But as this is an overlay with additional restrictions, that's why we're clearing that out.
It's not a problem for NAS Pensacola.
Thank you.
Okay. I will entertain a motion on the approval of this amendment.
I motion to approve it.
All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We got a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those
Right.
opposed? Great.
Thank you. I'll take it to the BCC on August 1st.
Great. All right, and then we've got a recommendation concerning the review of the comprehensive plan annual report for 2022, 2023, and that the planning board review and recommend approval of the Board of County Commissioners, the 2022-23 comprehensive plan annual report.
Yes, I'm Allison Lindsay, Development Services. So each year, we prepare the Comprehensive Plan Annual Report, which contains information and data that's related to growth on an annual basis. So the number of maps, the number of map amendments, opt-outs, and rezonings they have, they're about equal to last year's information, but they are definitely increased since the fiscal year 2020 to 2021. So, of course, happens every year. We update this, and then we give it to you, the planning board, and then we forward it on to the Board of County Commissioners. So,
All right.
any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I would ask, if we have about the same amount of numbers, but they're increasing. It's a consistent complaint from the public, and look, we've been through Perdido, we've been through Beulah. The north end of the county is on a train coming right at us. And I mean, is there a recommended way of communicating better with this county to with the north end of the county to get involved with maybe not an overlay, and I don't think they're going to be able to do like Beulah or Perdido with that, but I just think, it's very frustrating for them to have the same argument. Schools are full, the streets are full, we want the country, and I get it. And we're right opposed to unbelievable growth. And it sounds like we don't really give a rip what they think, basically, when it comes in. I don't know if there's a way within this, a type of a comprehensive plan that we can publish better, market it better, accommodate the north end or any other growing part of the county, say, hey, you're part of this process. But understand, because it's a pretty tough learning curve when you walk in here and say, hey, by the way, you've got 5 criteria, we don't listen to anything else. And there's a reason for that, and I understand the reason. It's only taken me 10 years to learn that, but I mean, I get why, but it's nonetheless, I think we're going to have a lot more people, a lot more frustration, a lot more F-bombs when, as we go down the road.
I mean, we've already ran into that with the mid-sector plan opt-outs. I mean, a balance in this one is not
So
going to be an easy one.
I think we got time for a discussion, but we do have an item that we've got here, unless this is part of that, but I'm happy to have a discussion on some of that when we get past this.
I mean, my only comment was, why is there a picture from Santa Rosa County in the Escambia County Comprehensive Report?
It's our sign, our property.
Okay, did we, is there any discussion on this item at hand? If there's no questions for staff, then I'll accept a motion.
I'll make the motion for approval of it. I mean,
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay. All right, so now we can discuss a few things if we'd like, and I like what was said and the frustration that we constantly see in this room over and over, and that we are to follow those criteria. And one thing that we heard over and over again today was about quality of life and how it's affecting them. And we do, under these conditions, if they're all met, and we agree with staff and we agree with the applicant that they presented evidence that establishes the required conditions, that the board can consider whether maintaining the current zoning is actually a service of greater public interest. We can recommend approval of the rezoning request to the BCC if the board finds that no new uses, densities, or intensities of use of the proposed zoning will likely diminish quality of life, reduce property values, confer a special benefit on the subject property to the detriment of the community as a whole, or create other adverse impacts upon surrounding properties more than the uses, densities, or intensities of the current zoning. And I don't know that we've done a good job of really making that an option for the public when they come in here to give their testimony. That if we do have something like today, where it met all the criteria, that we, as a board, then are able to look at some of these other factors that the public generally comes in here and brings up and speaks to. And so, I don't know, that just kind of doesn't sit with me well, that I feel like maybe we've fallen short on that front at times, and need to be able to give the public a better opportunity to address some of these quality of life issues that they are typically going to see and bring up more often, whether it's schools, traffic, impacts on their neighborhood or whatever. And instead of telling them, they're not able to use that as evidence, well, they are, if it's something that's met all the criteria that we believe has met all the criteria, then that is something that they are able to bring to the table and use as evidence of why they still don't support the project.
I just feel that quality of life sometimes can end up being subjective, especially when we're talking about rezoning, because we're applying so many uses in some cases to that property. I mean, who's to say that, yes, we're talking rural always here. I mean, hell, my district, pardon my French, sir, District 2 has not gotten a single rezoning except for one in the past 18 months. I mean, District 3, you guys have had more, but what we look at differently throughout the county, but up there, for instance, would you rather have a subdivision or a swine farm? That's one way to look at it. And that's where I say, okay, well, we're starting this argument here where quality of life comes, well, which way is it? Is it better to have it this way or is that way? It becomes subjective. You know, where does fair housing come into it? That's where my always worry is with this, is where do we cross the line where we're violating fair housing laws? Because we're listening to someone who says that they just don't want that specific element there. What is that? We've had that argument up here, and I don't think it's morally or ethically right. So, you know, it's a balancing act with that, Walker, I'll tell you that, you know. It's always going to be subjective when it comes to quality of life, you know. That's my part.
Yeah, I get it, and you're right. I mean, it frustrates me. People, Perdido Key, I'm here, I got mine, close the gate. I don't want anybody else here. But when you move out in the country and you invest on a large piece of property, we knew this was coming. We talked about it at the sector plan, mostly going up 29 area. Hey, I concur that 20 years ago, I was hit by another car on 195A. And the traffic was bad then, it's bad now, and it's going to continue to get worse. But again, and this may be an argument for a later date, for impact fees and the such for, the developers would want to shoot me, but I think we're the only county that I know of that doesn't have, those types of impact fees or and concurrency is another item. I know it's a whole nother Pandora's box, but I think that more importantly is I think people are smart. They get things are growing. They're not going to stay the same forever. I think people get that. I think it's the understanding that the staff isn't paid by a developer. We're not paid by anybody, and the communication is there. You call your commissioner. I think just the process is what can be frustrating for people. That if you're minding your own business up in the country, and all of a sudden you see this thing, and you're like, wait a second, and you come down here and you want to say rant and rave because I don't want it in my backyard, because nobody does. But we know people have figured out that we live here and this is the best part of the state, and they're going to move here. And that may lead to exactly what people are saying. We're moving out to Walnut Hill, out to Century. And I think that's somewhat natural progression. I don't know that it's welcomed by them, but things are going to change. I think the only thing we can control is the communication from staff to the county commissioners, to the fact that the county commissioners are where the buck stops, man. I mean, that's why they're paid the big bucks. That's why they're constantly fussed at. But
that goes back to what I said initially, too, multiple times during all this. We're talking about during the development order process. We're not talking about during here. I mean, that's where, ultimately, the county commissioners sign off on the development orders as well. Right. That's, well, you get my point of view. The county does, the developmental services does, which is underneath that. So there is a voice chain all the way through it, and that can be, stopped that way. But, I always say that. We have the avenues for it in place already. It just needs to be probably, I agree, shown better.
And I don't know how, because nobody really cares until it comes to my backyard. I mean, I'm the same way. Look, a certain general store that I was totally opposed to, they didn't care. And nobody cared until you're right there. And you're like, are you kidding me? This is insane. But I'm 0 for 2, actually. I lost on that one, too.
Very good. Yeah.
What's that? No, I won't. I got mad because my wife had me drive in the park driveway. I'm sure there's something.
Very good.
I'd like to make a general comment, just as a non-voting member and someone who try to come every month to the board meetings, and I learn a lot about processes. And in the case of like today, and I will have to say that I don't always appreciate when folks come up and they throw blame, or they want to throw a firing flame ball over at you. But at the same time, we were back and forth, and even as many times as I sit here and I know what's going on, I'm still confused. And so if you're brand new and just drove down from Molino, you're definitely confused because you're not living it on a month-to-month basis. You're not, it's always sort of been that way, where there's really, when you can say folks don't really clue into what quasi judicial is on a daily basis. I never thought about it until I sat on this board. And so I got to think that everyday citizens who are not associated with this process have got to be really confused. And it may look like, you know, there's some, yeah, or there's some, you know, this is intentionally made. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Escambia County Watch, and this board is already on here, okay? It's already being scrutinized, and where everybody has done what they're supposed to do. Everyone has followed the rules. We're following the rules of the state. We're following criteria, and still people are not happy, understandably. I am mad when my neighbor cuts down a tree because now I can see more than I used to see. So I can imagine what it would feel like if you were coming in with a new subdivision, and then you don't understand exactly the process about flipping back and forth between a quasi-judicial. I understand why we do it, but maybe there's some clarity that could be offered as just a thought when we do those kinds of things, to understand there are two different worlds that we have to live in, and we may have to flip back and forth, and it may take a graph. I don't know. I don't know what the suggestion is, but
I agree with you. Today's was a little bit more confusing than our normal ones, especially with the development agreement in place and everything like that. So we went through different avenues there. So I agree with that. You know, it could have been better explained.
I mean, that's what we need. We need like a Lonely Planet guide, or I don't want to say an idiot's guide to the planning process, but planning 101 that goes out to the citizens, because I've been on that side, and I felt like the developers had an unfair advantage. They know the process. It's their job. They get paid to do it, and we just come in at the last minute and try to fumble our way through the process. So if we could get just a little guide available to the general public, I think that would help.
We've done that. We've had multiple efforts over the years. Unfortunately, we're in a situation now where misinformation is widely available. As our director was trying to point out, if folks have questions, we do put our contact info on those notices and on the signs. Please reach out to us to get the truth, not what social media tells you. That's just unfortunately where we are right now.
But we could post it on the website, the county website, and they could download it. So if you have any questions on the planning process, here it is, in a simple guide. Just a thought.
And thank you, Drew. And we do. As a matter of fact, Drew did a he's a star on the website. His picture's up there. I think Mr. Ingram. I think people, y'all know my name probably is probably on every blog. Horace Jones. They think I control everything. So they know my name. They see my face. They see Drew's face. So so that's if they want, Mr. Ingram, that if they want to get the truth, or if they just want to inflame an issue without knowing the facts. And many times I found that's what happens a lot.
There's a lot of that bending of the misinformation. I mean, that seems to be the cancer online.
Look, he's got zoning 101.
Yeah, it's right there, yeah. Yeah. So, and I was about to say, I know for a fact there's flow charts.
But we also have created pamphlets and booklets that we've had for the rezoning process, for, you know, different processes through development services. So we have put that information out there.
And we want to do more, Mr. Ingram, but it's just how much more can we do to really do more, but how much more? But we're doing everything we possibly can.
If I may, we do have a member of the public here that spoke earlier. I don't want to put you on the spot, sir, but.
And I appreciate what he said, that because he didn't have he didn't have to apologize to me, because I get accused of so many things. I respect that when you not as informed, to come and let people know. Much respect for that, and that's where it should be.
What was the question, sir?
So the question is, how could we make it more understandable to those that are less informed? You can do whatever you want.
Can we go back and can I ask a question, maybe a pointed question? If someone's bringing up a quality of life or something like that, you said meet 5 criteria, and if they're bringing up something within that criteria, what's the metric that you're gauging that it meets that criteria? So if it's subjective, right? That's.
I feel that
so-
quality of life can be subjective.
Correct, correct.
Because
So-
of how, hey, you live here, I live here, we view things differently. That's the great thing about the democracy of America. We are all gonna have a different view.
100%. So if the metric that is, if the public knew what was used to meet that criteria, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, it
Mr.
does.
Morrison? So
Yes,
when
it does.
we come up and we say, for example, I'll just use what I say because I can't speak for anybody else, impermeable surfaces, traffic accidents, the amount of people that's now gonna be in that area. If that doesn't go with my quality of life, what does it meet to the criteria that now I can speak on?
Right, this is the thing, when it comes to quality of life, as you stated, a good point. I mean, and we have our attorney issue. That is a very, very subjective term, because what may be important may not be important to you, but what you listed, traffic, that's another whole legal issues that's beyond this board. There are so many different rules and laws that come, because every development gonna have traffic impacts. But you're gonna have to have traffic impacts in order for development. So that's why there's another whole density. Yes, we look at that, but it depends upon sticking with the criteria. And if there's a criteria that you really may have some question on, I don't mind sort of lead a person into what the things that you may need to talk about. But just overall traffic patterns, accidents, that's beyond what this board can really.
It's like if here's a kind of an analogy on that. The reason the criteria is used, and to his point, is if you came up and say, you know what, this is going to really kill my property value. Right. How dare you? How dare you take my property value? Well, that is in and of itself that's a very nebulous thing, right? And then you're getting into this guy bought that property. And he's risking a big, I know it's much easier to say the evil developers who are sitting on a pile of money, they're risking a pile of money. And, if he wins, he wins. If he doesn't, but whatever. But it's like when you say it's going to affect those arguments are certainly more subjective and harder to kind of grasp. That's why they said, hey, put these 5 criteria out. Now, there have been cases where we've sat there and I've said, it's very difficult. Actually, we say we disagree with staff's finding on point A and point B, and I recommend disapproval or approval based upon this and my opinion. And so that's where we got to have something pretty firm to kind of. But what I get to is when I have a woman out there virtually in tears because, the money, the place that she's invested in is in her mind just about to be crushed, and the fix is in, and it's already done, and nothing I can say. That's the frustrating part. And I guess you've answered my question. It is out there, and I think it's just probably human nature. We don't care until it comes to our backyard, and then you're like, oh man, we're toast. And
I think that's where we were all sitting and saying, hey, if you just stop the rezoning, I get it. The buck stops with the commissioner. If you stop the rezoning, it never gets there. That's kind of what they were hoping, really. But for the question of moving forward, the train, I can't remember which gentleman said it, the train's going up north, right? It is. It's gonna bypass the mill because the mill's there. I think they're losing one of their equipments and they're gonna be back down 100 now permanent. So before the accident, they're gonna be at 450 now, right? So you're looking at, people don't wanna build the $700,000 house right next to the mill. So they're gonna jump it. And they're going to Molino, right? Barano Park area. So if we know the train's headed that way, I hate to ask you this.
Yeah, we've had that. That is a complete speculation. Seriously, we've had that. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. I mean, I'm just saying. But I promise you, Drew and I, we've been doing this a long time. Those zoning categories.
Sure.
we still have a lots of undeveloped agricultural land up there, and then people, they think that because you just can't, it just won't happen overnight. So I not in my lifetime, seriously.
If we're not, we can't go east because we're going to Santa Rosa. We can't go west, we're going to Alabama. We can't go south, we're going into water. So
Yeah.
let's just say we're going north. Let's just hypothetically, let's just say we're going north. Do you agree with that? I just gave you the directions. We're not Japan, we're not going up. I mean, are we Japan? Are we building high rises?
I really.
No. Okay, so we're going north. So if the train's going north, just out of that, what I just said, is maybe there's a way to have,
We will, if
clinics? Is that what we can call
if-
it? Clinics? Maybe we can get the.
if that happens, we
To go
will
up there and
definitely.
hold educational.
Workshops.
Workshop.
Board, we are still in the meeting. We're, you're,
So, we've,
we are still in the meeting, okay?
Not for a
I just
little
want to
here.
get everybody back in line. Something else to keep in mind, while this board is quite lenient, given the situation, your rezoning hearings are quasi judicial in nature. You are very lenient in, allowing somewhat opinion testimony when it really technically should not be allowed. You know, it's gonna ruin my property value. Okay, well, that's your opinion. Let's see if you're qualified to give that opinion. And it's not just because you live there and you don't want your neighbor to have rights to their property. Same thing with traffic, stormwater, all of these things where folks give their opinion, which given the situation and the fact a lot of folks, this is the first interaction they have with this sort of situation. So it's much appreciated from our side that you do have leniency with that. But it's just something to keep in mind when we're addressing criteria that have to be addressed. And you do say at the beginning of the meeting, opinion testimony is limited to experts in that field. It's just something that can be a hiccup down the road, when we get to an appellant, sort of situation.
But I would offer that for these rezonings, they can look at the impact on infrastructure based on max build out, on what the max density for that new rezoning. So that's where they can put a number on it, and it is objective, i.e. impact on schools, impact on roads.
So-
And I think that data, the staff has done a lot better job including that. And I think that it's important that we continue to include that because we have to show the impact of the new zoning, what it's gonna have, what impact it's gonna have on those types of infrastructure.
Possible impacts, absolutely. That's why rezonings are not site plan specific. Anything allowed under that zoning district could go in.
That's where I think it's important that you show it at maximum density when you provide the numbers, just to show this is the maximum impact this rezoning is gonna have on our infrastructure.
So maybe this board makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners as a whole, that they, maybe not specifically District 5, but that they hold, workshops or public town hall meetings along with their planning and zoning representative, or holding hands and explain the process to anybody who cares if you're concerned about the future development of certain areas of the county. I don't know.
And they do, they do, it just, I don't wanna put more on that, that's strictly up to the board.
Yeah, they got plenty to do, I know, in their daily work, but I'm just saying maybe a form of self-preservation for them as well, because, again, if you think we can't do anything right, certainly everything they do is under scrutiny and, I don't know.
I can remind the board that layperson testimony is, of course, only permitted, or does not require knowledge, skill, experience, or training. I think you all are all aware of that, but I think the conflict arises when there's a quality of life issue that may seem obvious, but does require expert training to speak to. Citizens can make fact-based testimony, and that's what they're limited to. They can't make an opinion about it, but they can state facts. So they can speak to it, but it has to be centered on the facts of it, and not just opinion. But I know that there's an inherent conflict there.
Emotions get high, and I get that, so yeah. I think that's why we're so lenient, is so that people can voice that or be that sounding board here, but yeah, no. I do think that we do ultimately get that it has to be based in that fact, so.
Alrighty. Do we have anything else? Horace, you got anything?
No, sir, I didn't talk to enough.
Okay. We don't have anybody for public forum. Anything from county attorneys? Nope. And then our next regular planning board meeting is Tuesday, August the 6th at 8:30 a.m. right here in this room. How are we looking?
2 rezonings, an opt-out, and a Warrington development update.
Alrighty. I think if nobody's got anything else, that's gonna do us for today. All right, we stand adjourned.